Hi, here's another family drama with really, I would say, complicated relationships. Let's listen.
You can come to my birthday party, but only as staff, my sister said. You're too poor to count as family, my brother laughed. I just said, okay. On the day, they called me in a panic because the venue was. I was sitting in my parents' dining room, in the same chair I had claimed when I was 13, while my sister Bianca spread a folder across the table like she was preparing to brief a government committee. There were glossy photos of a ballroom, little menu cards, fabric samples, flower options, and a printed seating plan with tiny gold numbers. She had color-coded tabs and a pen with a fake pearl clip to it. My mother leaned over the pages and tapped one nail beside a picture of white orchids. Elegant, but not trying too hard, she said. My brother Tristan nodded with his serious face, the one he used when pretending expensive choices were moral choices. Dad complained about parking, which was his way of joining any family event without being emotionally available. I ate my chicken, listened, and tried not to laugh when Bianca said, the guest experience for the fourth time. It was a birthday party, not a treaty signing. Still, everybody treated the folder like it held the future of our family name. And somehow, I was the only person at that table not allowed to read the room. Bianca kept smoothing the edge of the seating chart, protecting it from crumbs and questions. The folder had a place for every detail except me. The longer they talked, the bigger the party became. Tristan mentioned the suit he was picking up from a tailor, then asked whether dark navy looked too accessible. Mom asked whether Aunt Elaine had confirmed, then reminded Bianca to seat Elaine away from Dad's cousin because Elaine drinks and corrects people. Dad wanted to know whether valet was included, and Bianca said the venue handled people like us. She said the name of the place slowly every time, as if it needed space to shine. I had never received an invitation, but I kept making excuses for that. Maybe friends needed the thick paper and the gold edges. Maybe family was assumed. Maybe after years of being the practical one, the one who showed up early and stayed late, I finally did not have to ask to be counted. Bianca slid one card toward Mom and said, "This is the signature cocktail list." I smiled and reached for my water. "That looks intense," I said. Nobody looked at me. Mom adjusted the card away from my elbow like my sleeve might leave a stain. Tristan asked whether there would be security near the private entrance, and Bianca said only if the guest list required it. I told myself families did not need tickets. A pause opened while Bianca arranged the flower samples by shade, and I used it carefully. "What's the dress code?" I asked. "I don't want to show up in the wrong color or look strange in photos." My voice was light, almost apologetic, because in my family even a harmless question could become proof that I did not understand my place. Bianca's fingers stopped on the corner of a menu. Tristan looked up from his phone. Mom gave me her small, polished smile, the one she wore when she believed I had embarrassed myself but wanted credit for being gentle. Dad cut his potato into smaller pieces than necessary. The refrigerator hummed behind us, suddenly louder than the conversation. "Dress code?" Bianca repeated. She made the words sound cute. "Why would you need the dress code, Nora?" For 1 second, I honestly waited for Mom to correct her. I waited for Dad to grunt out something normal, even something awkward. I waited for someone to say, "Obviously Nora is coming." The silence did the correcting instead. It corrected me. Bianca's eyes moved to Mom before she answered. A tiny check for permission. It made my question feel less like planning an outfit and more like stepping over a rope I had not seen. Bianca tilted her head like a patient teacher. "Invitations went out weeks ago." She slid her own sample invitation from the folder, thick cream paper with gold edges, and her name printed like a perfume brand. Actual invitations, she added. Designed ones. I looked at the card, then at Mom. I didn't get one. Tristan snorted before he could stop himself, then covered it by taking a sip of wine. Bianca smiled wider, not surprised, not sorry. Most people would have taken the hint. The fork in my hand felt too shiny and too loud when I set it down. Mom sighed softly, already preparing to make the insult sound like social order. Bianca has a very specific guest list, she said. It is not personal. It's a family birthday, I said. My voice did not rise. Dad shifted but still said nothing, which somehow felt practiced. Bianca stacked the invitations squarely, as if neat paper could make her decent. Exactly, she said. And some family members understand which spaces fit them. That was when the dinner stopped pretending to be dinner. Mom did not look confused. That was the worst part. She looked prepared, like this had already been discussed while I was not in the room. She was not surprised by the cruelty. She was helping place it. Bianca laughed once, enjoying the air she had created. You can come to my birthday party, but only as staff. She said staff like it had a smell. Then she leaned back and added, honestly, you would probably be more comfortable near the kitchen anyway. Somewhere practical. Somewhere useful. Tristan laughed hard enough to make Mom glance at him, but not hard enough for her to tell him to stop. You're too poor to count as family, he said. The sentence landed in the center of the table and nobody moved it away. I looked at Mom because a foolish part of me still believed a mother had a line she would not let one child cross against another. She only folded her napkin and checked Bianca's face first, as if the birthday girl's mood mattered more than her other daughter's dignity. Image matters, Nora. Bianca's guests are a certain kind of people. Dad kept looking at his plate. Bianca's smile sharpened when she saw no one was coming for me. That was the whole family vote, counted without a show of hands. Mom's sigh gave Tristan permission. Dad's silence put a seal on it. Every person there chose a role, and mine was to absorb the insult neatly. The joke had witnesses, and all of them signed it by staying quiet. Everyone watched me then. I knew that look. They were waiting for the scene they could retell later, the proof that I was jealous, dramatic, unstable, bitter. I could have asked when poverty became a blood test. I could have asked why they were so proud of a party that needed a velvet rope at my mother's table. I could have reminded them that I had worked for every bill they once called character building. Instead, I pushed my chair back without scraping it. Okay, I said. Just that. Bianca blinked because the word gave her nothing to hold. Tristan made one more little laugh, but it sounded unsure. Mom said, Nora, don't be like this, even though I had barely been anything at all. I walked to the hall, took my coat, and opened the front door. Behind me, Bianca whispered something about sensitivity, and Mom let it stand. Cold air hit my face before tears did. I drove home hearing one word over and over, as if they had pinned it to me. Staff. I did not slam the door because that would have given them music for the story. By the time the house disappeared in my mirror, the calm felt heavier than anger. Their version of the night would not get my fingerprints on it. On the drive home, I kept trying to shrink the dinner into something survivable. It was only a party. Only Bianca being theatrical, only Tristan making the kind of joke he always claimed was harmless once it had already done damage. But the lie would not hold past the second red light. That dinner had not invented anything. It had simply put better lighting on the way my family had always organized love. I was the middle child, which sounds like I was forgotten, but forgotten would have been cleaner. I was remembered whenever someone needed a comparison, a warning, or a body to absorb disappointment. Tristan was the future. Bianca was proof that our family had taste. I was the practical draft nobody planned to revise. My phone buzzed once in the cup holder. Mom, you embarrassed yourself by leaving. A second message appeared before the light changed. Bianca is upset now. I turned the screen down. Even from a distance, she was still setting the rules. I drove past the grocery store where I used to buy marked-down dinners after late shifts, and even the parking lot felt like evidence. The old pattern followed me home, and it still knew the address. The rules had started early, before university was even close enough to be called a plan. When Tristan struggled in math at 16, Dad had a tutor at our kitchen table by Monday. When Bianca cried over biology, Mom found a private teacher and called it protecting her confidence. There were language lessons, interview coaches, summer programs, new laptops, campus tours with hotel stays, and restaurants after every visit. When I asked for help with chemistry, Dad said, "You are old enough to manage." When I asked whether I could use the newer laptop for a scholarship application, Bianca needed it for creative planning. The answer changed depending on who was asking. If they needed something, it was investment. If I needed it, it was neediness. Once, I printed practice tests at the public library because our home printer was for important things. Mom saw the stack and said, "Good. You're resourceful." Then she asked me to pick up Bianca from a tutoring session across town. Resourceful was cheaper than supported. I learned to stop bringing permission slips to the table unless I had already found a way to pay. Asking first only gave them a chance to turn refusal into advice. I became fluent in quiet planning before adulthood. By application season, the decision had been made before I brought my brochures to the kitchen. I laid them beside Dad's coffee and showed him my grades. They were not worse than Tristan's, and in 2 subjects they were better than Bianca's. He glanced at the first page like it was junk mail. "Tristan has a plan," he said. "Bianca has potential. You need to be realistic." I asked what that meant, even though I already knew. Mom wiped the counter slowly. "Do not make this ugly." I asked why they could pay for tutors, rent deposits, and application trips for the others, but not even a few fees for me. Dad pushed the brochure back with 2 fingers. "Because we have to put money where it will do the most good." 2 days later, Mom booked Bianca another campus visit and asked me to watch the dog because the kennel was too expensive. That was how money worked in our house. It disappeared when I needed a future and reappeared when someone else needed a better-looking one. They had denied me permission, not ability. I mailed the applications myself from a post office across town, hands shaking because independence sounds prettier when it is not forced. Still, the envelopes went out. I chose hospitality operations because it made sense to me. Venues, contracts, staffing, bookings, guest flow, vendor rules, safety plans, budgets, and the business side of beautiful rooms. I liked the idea that luxury was not magic. It was work. It was people arriving early, checking lists, fixing mistakes before guests noticed, and staying calm while someone else took a photo under flowers they did not hang. My family heard hospitality and acted like I had signed up to stand at a service entrance forever. Bianca smirked when I told them. At least you'll know where the kitchen is, she said. Tristan laughed. Mom said, there are respectable paths that do not require pretending this is bigger than it is. Dad asked whether the degree came with real prospects. I tried to explain operations, revenue, and management tracks, but Tristan interrupted to ask if I would get a uniform. I learned something that day. They did not look down on service because it was simple. They looked down on it because it revealed how much their comfort depended on people they ignored. The more they joked, the more certain I became that they had no idea what made a polished room work. Their ignorance was not innocent. It was comfortable. University was not romantic for me. I took the cheapest room I could find, worked around classes, and learned which grocery store marked down bread after 9. I carried event manuals in a backpack with a broken zipper and kept emergency coins in a mug by my bed. When classmates talked about unpaid internships like they were character exercises, I calculated rent. I passed, but I was tired so often that tired became part of my face. On visits home, nobody saw effort. Tristan looked at my hands one winter, cracked from dishwashing shifts, and said university clearly was not for everyone. Mom suggested I should have picked something more suitable. They had helped create the struggle, then treated the struggle as evidence. The first time I coordinated a student conference and caught a catering error before guests arrived, my professor said, "You have good eyes." I went into a storage room, counted linen bags, and breathed until I could work again. Nobody at home had ever called my attention useful. I kept a notebook of costs, deadlines, and tiny victories because no one else was tracking them. Some weeks, the notebook was the only place my effort looked real. That was where I learned to document myself. I met my husband Daniel during my second year, when he helped me carry 2 boxes of programs after a guest speaker changed rooms without telling anyone. He wore plain clothes, used an old backpack, and never talked about money. He listened when I explained why a bad floor plan could ruin an event, and he did not smile like I was making small things large. Months later, when we were serious, the truth came out in pieces. A family name on an investment document, a dinner where everyone dressed normally but knew too much about hotels, his father casually saying, "One of our properties," while passing bread. Daniel did not hide wealth out of shame. His family kept it quiet because money made people perform. I understood that immediately. I had watched my family perform with far less. When we married, I did not announce his background. My family noticed he was polite, drove an older car, and never wore logos, so they placed him in the same quiet category where they kept me. I wanted love that was not repriced at the door. I had already seen enough doors. He never asked why I rarely invited him home. He waited until I chose to explain, and when I did, he believed me the first time. When I got home from that dinner, Daniel was in our kitchen rinsing a glass. He looked up once and set it down without asking whether I was fine. I appreciated that. I was clearly not fine, and we had both lived long enough to dislike theater inside a safe house. He pulled out a chair, not too fast, not too careful. "Tell me what happened." I told him in pieces. Bianca's folder, the invitations, the dress code question, the way everyone waited for me to understand I was outside the circle. When I repeated Bianca's staff line, Daniel's jaw changed. When I repeated Tristan saying I was too poor to count as family, he stopped touching the chair. "Your mother heard that?" he asked. "She improved it," I said. "She called it image." The room went very quiet. Daniel took one breath through his nose, the controlled kind. My voice had gone flat by then, which scared me more than crying. Crying moves. This felt like something inside me had sat down and refused to get up. He moved slowly around me, not like I was fragile, but like sudden noise would make the room worse. That kind of care was almost harder to receive. Daniel stood with one hand on the back of the chair, and for a moment I saw the anger he usually kept disciplined. "Do you want me to call them?" he asked. "No!" I answered too quickly, but I meant it. I did not want a dramatic rich husband rescue scene. I did not want him to announce money like a weapon so my family could suddenly discover that I had value. What hurt was not that they called me poor. What hurt was that if I really were poor, they would still think that made their behavior reasonable. Daniel sat across from me. "Then what do you want?" I looked at the table between us, the plain wooden one we bought because it was sturdy, not impressive. "I want them to stop using my silence as permission." He nodded, and that was one reason I loved him. He did not rush to perform protection. He asked where the boundary was. The old version of me would have said it was fine by morning. That night, the boundary was still forming. The fact that he asked instead of taking over made my throat tighten. I was not used to anger that still left me room to decide. Daniel asked where Bianca's party was, and I said the venue name with a small imitation of her voice because I was still angry enough to be petty in private. The effect was immediate. He paused a second too long. I looked up. "What?" "Say that again." I did. His expression shifted from husband to business, a look I rarely saw at home. "That venue is part of a hospitality group my family is heavily invested in." He did not say it like a movie line. There was no secret crown, no dramatic ownership reveal. Just a fact, delivered carefully. "Not ours in the cartoon sense," he added, reading my face. "But close enough that people there know my surname." The word staff turned in the air between us and pointed a different way. I did not feel triumphant. I felt cold. I had spent years learning how luxury worked from below, and my sister had just tried to assign me there for sport. "Do they think Bianca's booking is connected to us?" Daniel reached for his phone. "We should find out." Daniel scrolled through his contacts, then stopped with his thumb above the screen. The connection was not a weapon yet, and I did not want it becoming one. Before he called, I put my hand over his phone. "Do not cancel anything." He looked at me, not offended. "I was not going to. I mean it. I do not want revenge dressed up as administration." He turned the phone face down and waited. That patience made it harder to stay composed. I told him I did not want Bianca's party ruined because I was hurt. I wanted any consequence to belong to her own choices, not my pain. Daniel listened, then said, "If your family is using a venue connected to us and treating staff badly, I need to know. That matters with or without the dinner." That was fair, and I hated that it was fair. He called a manager named Marcus, someone who clearly knew him well. I heard Daniel's side only, calm greeting, a few questions, then silence. He asked whether the booking had been difficult. His face changed before his voice did. "There have been issues?" he asked. The answer was not small. He put the call on speaker only after Marcus agreed it was appropriate, and even then Daniel kept his questions narrow. Booking, conduct, contract. Nothing extra. The manager's answer would decide the size of everything. After the call, Daniel sat beside me, and we went through what Marcus had confirmed. That connection came from the booking notes. During an early call, Mom had mentioned me under my married name as the family member who knew hospitality and might help with logistics. Marcus recognized Daniel's surname and assumed Daniel and I knew about the event. Bianca had been difficult from the first inquiry. She demanded discounts that were never promised, pushed for free upgrades, tried to turn a private birthday dinner into a filmed influencer-style spectacle, and added vendors not listed in the contract. Mom had been smoother, but not better. She kept saying, "Surely you can make an exception," in the tone people use when they do not think rules are for them. Tristan had apparently said, "Do you know who we are?" At least once, which would have been funny if he were not attached to me by blood. The venue had tolerated more than usual because of Daniel's family connection, not because Bianca deserved it, not because she had paid for it, because they believed the booking was connected to me through my husband. Marcus had told his staff to be patient because family relationships can be delicate. My family had been benefiting from my married name without even knowing it, while laughing that I did not belong in the room. Daniel did not interrupt the list. He listened with his eyes on the table, and with every detail, the dinner at my parents' house became uglier. None of it sounded like a misunderstanding anymore. Daniel called Marcus back with me sitting close enough to hear every word he chose. He did not raise his voice. He did not ask for punishment. He did not say, "Make them regret it." He said, "Stop extending courtesy beyond the contract." Marcus must have asked for specifics, because Daniel listed them plainly. No special discounts, no unapproved outside vendors, no holding a larger room unless it was paid for and confirmed, no bending safety limits, no tolerating staff abuse because someone might be connected to ownership. "Treat them exactly as you would treat any other client behaving this way," he said. When he hung up, I felt something complicated move through me. Not revenge, not happiness, more like the floor had leveled under everyone's feet. Daniel placed the phone on the table and asked, "Is that okay?" I nodded, slowly. For years, my family had walked on carpets other people paid for, then mocked my shoes. Now, nobody would widen the door for them just because they expected it. That was the quiet move. He repeated that no one should mention me unless business required it. The point was not to parade my connection. The point was to remove the cushion under theirs. That was the boundary in plain clothes. The next evening, Bianca's party was supposed to begin at 6. I was home in leggings, eating toast over the kitchen sink because some days dinner is just whatever requires the fewest dishes. Daniel sat on the sofa with a book open, but he had turned the same page 3 times. Neither of us said the venue out loud. At 6:17, my phone buzzed. Bianca. I let it ring. At 6:18, Mom called. At 6:19, Tristan. Then Bianca again, twice in a row. A message landed. "Pick up." "What did you do?" Another followed. "They won't let us into the ballroom." I looked at Daniel. He did not look pleased. He looked like consequences had arrived exactly on schedule and still found everyone unprepared. "You do not have to answer," he said. "I know." The phone buzzed again, and this time I answered. I had muted the family chat after 3 unread messages, but individual calls still cut through. Each name on the screen felt less like concern and more like a summons. I put it on speaker because secrecy had done enough work in my family. Bianca was already yelling before I said hello. This time, answering did not mean obeying. The line was loud and echoing, all heels on stone floors, guests murmuring, and someone from the venue saying, "Ma'am, please lower your voice." Bianca shouted that the staff was refusing the ballroom setup she expected. The champagne wall, the floral arch, the filming lights, extra tables, and the outside photographer's equipment. "They are humiliating me," she snapped. "For what?" As she yelled, the facts came out in pieces she did not seem to recognize as facts. She had booked a private dinner for 40 but arrived with almost 90 people. The discount she kept mentioning had never been confirmed in writing. The larger ballroom was never part of the signed package. The final payment for the add-ons had not cleared. "They knew what I wanted," she said. "They have emails." "Do they have a contract?" I asked. She went quiet for half a second, then got louder. Behind her, Tristan said, "Tell Nora to call whoever she knows." That half second told me everything. The venue was not ruining her party. It was reading the booking. Bianca did not use my name at first. She spoke as if I were a switch hidden behind the desk, something she could flip when the lights went wrong. I stayed seated while her panic unfolded. A calm male voice came closer to Bianca's phone. I recognized Marcus from Daniel's call only by the name Bianca spat at him. "Miss," he said, "the larger room had only been held as a courtesy, and it was never part of your signed package. That courtesy has ended." "Courtesy from who?" Bianca snapped. There was a pause, the kind professionals use when deciding how much truth is allowed in public. "From ownership," Marcus said. Tristan's voice cut in from somewhere nearby. "What ownership?" Marcus answered with the surname attached to Daniel's family. "Not my parents' name. His." The call changed shape. The background noise seemed to pull back. Bianca lowered her voice so quickly it almost sounded like someone had turned a dial. "Why did he say your husband's name?" Before I could answer, Mom grabbed the phone. "Nora, what is going on?" she asked, using the careful voice she saved for witnesses. I heard Dad mutter, "Keep your voice down," which was the closest he had come to leadership all week. For once, Mom was not managing me. She was trying to find the exit. Bianca knew enough about status to understand that surnames open doors. Now the door was opening in the wrong direction, and she had no script for that. That silence was the first honest guest. 10 minutes after I ended that call, my friend Lena called. Lena had gone to university with me, and Bianca had met her once at a campus gala. Bianca remembered the clothes, not the friendship, and apparently that was enough to make Lena look like the right kind of guest. Bianca had no idea Lena actually knew Daniel's family. Lena did not start with gossip. She started with, "Are you okay?" That told me the scene had been worse than Bianca made it sound. Then she gave me the clean version. Marcus offered the family the smaller private room they had booked, the original menu, and the original service schedule if they paid the outstanding balance, removed the filming setup, cleared the unapproved vendors, and reduced the extra guests. Bianca refused because the smaller room would look cheap. Tristan argued that the venue had already promised better treatment. Mom tried to speak to Marcus privately and failed. Guests were standing near the entrance pretending not to listen, which meant everyone was listening. Lena said another guest recognized Daniel's surname and asked out loud whether the birthday girl seriously did not know who her own brother-in-law was. That was when the image cracked. Lena said a few people had already started leaving, slowly, pretending they had other plans. No one wanted to be photographed in a lobby disaster. Bianca called back from the parking area, no longer performing for the room but still trying to perform for herself. "Why didn't you tell us Daniel had money?" she demanded. "Why would you let us look stupid?" Mom came on next, softer and worse. "Family should not hide things from family, Nora. You can still fix this if Daniel calls. I sat at our kitchen table, the same table where Daniel had asked what boundary I wanted. I did not know the venue was connected to Daniel until after the family dinner, I said. And he did not invent the unpaid balance, the extra guests, the outside vendors, or the filming rules. Bianca snatched the phone back. So you ruined my birthday over a joke? No, I said. You ruined it when you needed special treatment to afford the party you were pretending to host. She made a sound like I had slapped her, but all I had done was stop catching what she dropped. Mom started saying my name again, smaller each time, like it might still work. It did not. I could hear car doors closing behind her and Mom breathing too close to the microphone. Then I hung up. Their emergency had become exactly what they feared most: visible. 6 months later, I had not been back to my parents' house. Mom's messages moved from angry to tearful to practical, which was how I knew she had accepted that guilt would not open the door, so she was trying logistics. Tristan sent Daniel a fake-friendly email asking about investment advice. Daniel deleted it. I did not ask to read it. Bianca sent one apology that used the word misunderstood 4 times and the word sorry once. The story traveled in careful fragments. The birthday girl who booked a luxury venue she could not afford, insulted her sister as too poor to count as family, then learned the venue had only been patient because of that sister's husband. Daniel and I moved on quietly. We traveled. I kept working. We still bought good things without logos. I stopped explaining myself to people who only became curious once money was involved. The money never made me worthy. It only proved my family had been measuring the wrong thing. Peace did not arrive dramatically. It arrived in ordinary evenings, in unanswered calls, in a table where no one had to earn a seat. So tell me honestly, was my husband right to call the venue, even if it ruined her birthday in the end, and was I right to keep our wealth secret from my own family? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.
Hello, a quick hello from the writer. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe and also check out my other channel where I narrate my stories myself. See you on the next one.